today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I am one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford. And today we are going to be talking about one of our, I don't know if it's new, it's definitely a little bit older, but one of our favorite assessments that recently we repicked back up, so to speak. I don't know. Angela, if you're like me, do you retake personality tests and things like that? Or do you take it one and you're like, I'm good. I don't need to retake it.
Interesting. It depends. Depends on what kind of assessment it is. This one I don't know that I ever took. I think I just read the little things and went, "Oh, that's the one I want to be." I don't know. It's one of those I've never dove deep until the last 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden I'm like obsessing about it.
Very interesting. I've retaken my Myers-Briggs personality assessment, like, I think 6 or 7 times, and, like, 5 of 6 times have the exact same personality type. So I don't know why I keep retaking it thinking that my personality is gonna change, and even on the 6th time, the one that was different, it was, like, 1 letter was switched, and it was a little bit different. Anyway, whatever. Alas, today we are going to be talking about Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies quiz. And I really like getting to know different people's motivation styles from this and understanding just how people operate and what they how they operate in these different ways. So,
Well, let's pause
okay.
because you call it a motivation style, and I want to be very careful in how we talk about this in the similar way of I get real fanatical about saying emotions and feelings. For those that don't remember, emotions are the physiological response to a trigger, and a feeling is your cognitive description of what is happening to you. So if you get scared and then you decide that's bad, the emotion is you felt your heart racing, you literally physiology. Anyway, I am fanatical about it just so that for clarity. And on this one, she calls it the four tendencies. And it is about how we handle and respond to the expectations in our life. And so we have two different kinds of expectations: outer expectations, like work deadlines, and people have, requests, other people put a request on us. Hey, you want to have coffee? And inner expectations, like our New Year's resolutions, we decide we want to lose weight, we want to decide what all of those things are. And so this is talking about our response to those expectations. And the reason why I think that's important to clarify it is because I am on a quest this year to understand and get comfortable with disappointment. And disappointment is unmet expectations. So that's probably why I'm kind of nerding out on this assessment now. And before I was like, oh, yeah, that one's me, and moved on and didn't really dig in, is because I'm really trying to understand expectations so that I can be more flexible when I experience disappointment. So,
There you go. Okay, that's a really good clarification. And I'm very curious, Angela, for you to share about which one it is that you were like, oh, yeah, that's the one I want to be. We'll break down all 4 of these styles, but let's start there. Which one did you want to be?
I want to be a rebel. I love being a rebel. So the four we're going to talk about: upholder, questioner, obliger, and rebel. None of those sound like cool except rebel. Like I feel like I get a black leather jacket if I'm a rebel. Except then when you read what it is, rebels resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. You can't make me, and neither can I. Like, yeah, nobody can make me. It's so far from how I actually am, but it's hilarious. Anyway,
So
what
let's
about
talk
you?
more. Oh, well, I have known for a very long time that I am a questioner. I guessed I was a questioner before I took it, and then I took it, and then somebody will come up and they'll be like, "Oh, you're definitely a questioner." I think that I live that a little bit too true, a little thoroughly.
I
Even
have
you
a
talk
fun
about
story about that. I actually was so tired of 4-year-old Sammy's questions that I wrote to our elected officials the only time when I had small children to say, please, 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 please do not move the kindergarten start date to where my kid can't go this year. Please, please, please don't do it. Please let her go and let somebody else answer her questions because I don't know the answers to most of her questions.
Yeah, and I will say what's funny is that I have a 5-year-old now who has a lot of questions, and they they can get to a point where it can be too many questions, but I also think I do have an above average tolerance for his questions. Like, I will take it takes a lot more questions for me to get tired of them. For my favorite question was, "Mom, if we were to travel to the Arctic and encounter a polar bear, do you think that we should bring some food with us so that the polar bear doesn't try to eat us and follow us back home and walk inside our garage and inside our house in case we forgot to lock our door? I think we should bring some food with us when we go to the Arctic. Do you think we should do that?" What the crap, kid? Like, what? Yes, if we go to the Arctic and we encounter a hungry polar bear, let's give it food so it doesn't follow us home and into our garage and our house. Like, I mean, the questions, it's thorough. It's very thorough. Like, just frankly, it's probably too anxious of a kid trying to plan ahead for too many scenarios. But that'll be a different podcast, anxiety in children. So let's break down these 4 tendencies. And also, if you would like to pause the episode right here, this would be a really good spot to pause and to go to gretchenrubin.com/4 dash tendencies. We'll put the link in the show notes. So Gretchen is GretchenRubin.com. I'm sure everybody loved me spelling. And then 4 dash tendencies. So go take the assessment. If you want to know,
FOUR
oh yeah,
4, not the number 4.
FOUR.
FOUR.
Yep. And tendencies has 2 E's in it, no A's. We're really just going to spelling bee right here. Um, it's not what I thought we were going to be doing. Anyway, some people like to know what the options are and then take it. And some people are like, no, 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 no. Don't tell me what the end results are. I want to take it without knowing. So if you're that person, this is your moment. This is the like spoiler alert incoming. All right, now let's begin. Angela, which one do you want to break down first?
Well, on the 4 tendencies page, she starts with upholders. And so I kind of want to talk about upholders. And also in my deep dive, very, very theoretical research here. Not theoretical research, very haphazard research. I have sent this to about probably 15 people in my life. I didn't post it on social media. I've been kind of quiet on social media a lot lately. Um, so I just sent it to some people I knew because the whole point I wanted to be able to speak to their personality. So if I just post on social media and some random person I don't really know answered. Anyway, all that to say, I sent it to about 15 people. I have not one single upholder that answered the question and told me about it. So, upholders respond readily to outer and inner expectations. Discipline is my freedom. Now, I probably didn't send it to enough of my engineering friends.
It's fair.
But um so the first one is an upholder, and I think she said, I think I read somewhere that like 65% of the planet is an upholder. I think that's
Whoa,
true. I could be wrong. Maybe I made that up. You
that's a
know,
lot of people.
89% of all statistics are made up. That's why I thought it was really, I thought it was high because I was so shocked by that. That it was very high. So this is the kind of person that says I do what others expect and what I expect for myself. If they schedule, if they want to exercise more, they just schedule it. They keep a chart. They readily meet their external expectations, and then they also do meet their inner expectations. So now I can't find where it said 65%, so maybe I did make that up. But the anyway,
Some of
upholder.
the
I don't know how to talk about it because I don't know a lot about it because I don't can't find my friends that are upholders. Go
Some
ahead.
of the other things that I found about upholders is that some of their strengths is that they are self-starters, they
Mm,
are self-motivated, they're very reliable and thorough. Some of the things that are potential weaknesses is they don't love when you point out where they might have dropped the ball or done something wrong. So they're probably going to be a little faster to get defensive. They can be sometimes too rigid and demanding about whatever expectations are going on. There's not a lot of flexibility in that. But overall, the some of the biggest strengths is that they're going to be very reliable team members, friends. They make a commitment. They're going to show up to that commitment, kind of regardless of what's going on.
I love it. They sound like lovely people, and I'm sure as soon as I post this podcast, then I'm going to have like 19 more people that are like, "Hello, you didn't send it to me because I'm obviously an upholder." Um,
There you go.
they also thrive on routine and struggle with last minute changes when the rules are unclear. I thought that was interesting. They want to know what's expected of them so they can meet those expectations. I thought that was very helpful.
On the now that I think about it, I feel like this is also like a really competitive board game person. Could be an upholder. When I think about, or at least a tendency that can come out in somebody who's really competitive, I want to know the rules the whole way through. It doesn't matter why the rules exist. It doesn't matter who set the rules. I'm going to follow them and I'm going to use these rules to dominate the game to win as long as I follow this system and this structure.
Yep.
That's it. I know a couple of those people in my board game world. So, our next tendency that we're going to talk about is a questioner. Angela, do you want to break it down? Tell us a little bit more about questioners.
Yeah, so questioners question all expectations. They will meet an expectation only if they think it makes sense. Essentially, all expectations they turn into an inner expectations. I'll comply if you convince me why. They are someone that is they are motivated by reason, logic, fairness, and this can lead to conflict when they don't have enough information.
I also, as you know, you and I are both questioners. Some of the strengths of this, I think, is that we're really interested in understanding how and why systems work. We're really good at helping people make their businesses better because we ask those questions. They are willing to play devil's advocate. Often they are strong willed. However, that strong willed can be a little bit of a weakness sometimes. They can either be so attached to only their outcome because they believe their outcome is the best. They can suffer from analysis paralysis. If there's not a clear reason about why to choose an option, it can be really difficult to make that decision. They also can defy expectations that others might find fair or non-optional. I remember when I worked in my previous world in the legal department, there were times where I was like, I don't understand why this is the rule. And my boss once was like, Sammy, I get it. The rule is dumb. The rule doesn't make sense. The IRS says it is so. So that has to be a good enough why for you. I was like, well, okay, fine. I will accept that. That like I can't change the IRS and we can accept that it's a dumb rule, but it's the IRS's rule and if we don't follow it, you could go to jail. Like, okay, good enough reason. Like I guess I'll get on board. So, anyway, um
Love that.
one of the things about questioners, I need to understand the why. And but even that was a motivating why. If you don't do it this way, even though this way is dumb, somebody could go to jail or get fined or whatever it is.
Right.
Other thoughts on questioners, Angela?
Ironically, a number of people in my friend group were like, questioner, questioner. Not shocking, questioner. I'm like, oh, that's so fun. No wonder we have so much fun together when we are hanging out, is because we get each other and it's easy because we're not offended when somebody asks us why we're doing something. So I was not surprised that I have a number of people that are questioners in my life. So,
I love it.
yep.
Speaking of people who rely on other people in their life, let's talk about obligers. Can you tell us a
Up
little bit more about that one?
Yep. Obligers meet outer expectations, but struggle to meet expectations they impose on themselves. I love this quote. You can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. Oh, I was wrong about
I
upholders. I'm so sorry. Um, Obligers are the biggest group. They're the ones that people count on the most.
okay.
They put a high value on meeting commitments to others and may have trouble setting limits and meeting commitments to themselves.
That makes sense, and it makes sense that we're wrong about the other category because this does track, I think, for the most. At least I know a lot of people in my life. The Some of the strengths of obligers is that they are going to be really reliable. They're really good team players and seeing how they can fit within the team and really help serve everybody. And they're often really committed and willing to go the extra mile for the people around them. Some of their potential weaknesses is that they are easily exploitable. They can be a little bit codependent or people pleasing in some of their tendencies. And one of the weaknesses is that they need outer accountability to meet inner expectations. So even like intrinsic goals, saving money, weight loss, whatever that is, those are a little bit harder or trickier for obligers because they need that external person that they are working with. They can't just do it for the sake of doing it or for their own selves.
What's interesting is that there are times when, especially since I am a certified life coach, and people talk to me about like they might want to hire me as their accountability coach, and I've up until this moment have been very confused by that because I'm like, I mean, I guess, and I've even found like people. I found some research that's like if you aren't personally motivated to do it yourself, even checking in with somebody else won't keep you accountable. Now, I say that, and also I have routinely, when am I working in a group, I schedule routine meetings. I've got two different events that I'm working on the marketing for, and I have scheduled a regular cadence for the meetings so that we have check-in meetings because that helps hold me accountable because I know that's how my brain works and I love to have that. So, I guess in that way I do see that. And I have also decided that I like it's a core value of me to be a woman of my word. So sometimes I think I kind of act a little bit like an obliger because I, if I've made a commitment to somebody, I really want to uphold that commitment. And it's really important to me. But if you look at the questioner and I understand the why, then that kind of explains it, I guess.
I want to explain this last one, but let's come back to that concept of I want to be a woman of my word and how that does fit in, I think, even with questioner or obliger or upholder or whatever that might be. The last tendency that we are going to talk about is rebel. Angela, you want to tell us a little bit more about your favorite undercover, not favorite undercover. Tell us a little bit more about maybe your favorite style.
It turns out it's not my favorite style once I read more about it and I dug into it because my husband is a rebel. We have a staff member that's a rebel, and also another friend of mine, close friend of mine, who typically listens to podcasts, is also a rebel. And they resist all expectations, outer and inner, alike. You can't make me, and neither can I. So if you tell them what to do, that makes them way less likely that they'll do it, even if it's something they want to do. They value freedom and choice and like to do things their own way.
Some of the strengths of rebels is that they are independent. They're often able to see outside the box in ways that other people might not be able to. And they are not really going to be as swayed by like the group and group think, going to be able to stand a little bit on their own. Some of the weaknesses is that they are resistant to, team projects. They might find it might be a little bit restless and hard to settle into a particular job or relationship or city. And they also really don't like routines and sometimes planning. They want to be really spontaneous, which is good in some aspects and not always good in other aspects.
I think my historical reason for wanting to be a rebel, which sounds silly now, but anyway, is that the idea that they value freedom and choice and like to do things their own way. I mean, that's why I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years and I've had not such great success working for other people. And so there's an element of this that I think, like everything, any kind of these tendencies, there's probably an axis on it,
Sure.
where we're all a little bit of something depending on what the situation is and what the scenario is. But I thought it was fun. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, also, I think that because they are tendencies, you might tend one way, but also go a little bit of another way. And that doesn't mean that, I think, like with any personality test or assessment, nobody fits in one single box all the time in all situations, regardless. I think all of us have some parts of all four of these tendencies. There just
Mhm.
might be some that show up more or even a lot more than the others. So, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this today is because we have been working on a lot of stuff kind of behind the scenes to help figure out how we can be better resources for teams and helping build team resilience. And something that continues to come up is understanding who you are and how you work. And I think that these tendencies, especially in a work context, can really help you get to know your team and work well within a context of your team. And understanding the dynamics at play, understanding people's tendencies can actually give you some tools to work with maybe a little bit more difficult coworker, maybe somebody who doesn't matter how often you try to tell them to do the thing, they just stop trying to do the thing because you've told them to do it. Maybe they're a rebel, and finding a way to meet them where they are will help get you better results.
Yeah, we had an interesting scenario at work because we did this test in a team meeting, and then we all kind of talked about it, and everybody kind of, said this is what I am, and here's what it looks like. And we have a staff member that's been with us for 7 or 8 years, and she's a staff writer. And when we start talking through this rebel personality and she starts sharing some of the ways that she thinks about things, and back when she was a little kid going like, if you tell me don't touch it because it's hot, I'm going to touch it. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And so she and I discussed how I am an efficiency nerd. And so and I also, I care about profitability. And so if there's a process and a way we do things and it's not getting the results that we need, then we need to change that process. And so I had to take a staff writer through the process of learning how to use AI to help write. And I remember being super intentional. And I didn't even know she was a rebel at the time, but it worked out to my advantage because I was very, very intentional about the way I presented it to her. It was like, look, I know that you don't that you're going to be nervous when I teach you this thing, but do you really want to keep writing blog posts about carpet? Right? And that's not very exciting to write blog posts about carpet. What you're going to do is you're going to program the robot to write you a blog post about carpet. And so I'm going to train you a new skill. You're still going to have job security, and I want you to see how it works and tell me what method works for you. And then we also switched from a monthly to a quarterly cadence. And instead of saying, this is how you're going to do it, I said, here's how I think this will work. If you will try it for a couple of weeks, and then let's talk about the old way versus the new way and which things are better and how the process can work better. She was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and was very on board with the whole process because I didn't say, this is what we're going to do now. And honestly, I needed her engaged. I needed her to bring her whole self so that we got the best possible solution because I don't do her job every day. So it was very fun to yesterday talk through, or in our team meeting, it was very fun to talk through like how different that felt from previous earlier in her job history with us, where I was a little more like, this is the plan and this is what you're going to do. And it would be frustrating because she wouldn't do it. And it was like, it feels like if I tell you to do something, then you do the polar opposite. That is true. She did, which is detrimental and not fun for those of us managing her. But she also would produce well. She did a great job. And so that was super hard because it's like or then the things that she didn't do great, it was very hard to like encourage improvement because she felt like her way was the right way. So anyway, it's been
I
fun.
love it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's super one of the things that's a little bit interesting about that is that your relationship with this employee has been able to be better when you're more intentional about this and a little bit more aware. A
Hmm.
different employee where the lines are a little more personal, a little bit more blurred.
Wait, are you talking
Um,
about my husband, who's my business partner? That's also a
uh-huh,
rebel.
that guy who's also a rebel. It's interesting that being a little bit too close to the situation is harder, I think, at times to bring that same objectivity and like, okay, let's make this take more time so that we can get more buy-in. Um, and it's also trickier because I think there's longer grooves than with an employee that like just can jump to butting heads a little bit faster. Because it's not just happening for the 8 hours at work, it might be other things outside of that. When
Indeed.
you brought up earlier being a woman of your word and how that can kind of be an obliger, but for you, it's a little bit of the questioning that, like, no, this is something that matters to me. It's in alignment with my character, and this is why I'm going to do that. This is a teeny bit of a tangent, but I've been thinking about that lately because it is not a core value of mine in the way that it's a core value of yours. It does not mean I don't think it's important to follow through on the things that I promise and that like I'm going to meet those expectations, but it is interesting the difference. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't actually know how to explain that at times. But I understanding who you are and I don't know, maybe the point I just want to make is just it's okay to have different core values than other people. That doesn't mean that you devalue that thing. It just might not be like a top 3 or a top 5 thing for you.
Yeah, for me, I think I can tell you the why since we're questioners. We can talk about the
Yeah.
why. I have struggled throughout the years because one of the, I would say, symptoms of my ADHD is that I sometimes tell myself a story or feel that I'm a little bit flaky. And in that, I mean that, like, literally, people don't ask me, how are you? They say, people that know me say, what are you doing now? In business context, if I'm about business networking, what are you doing now? Like, everybody knows I'm doing something different. And so that can, when I, especially before I had worked on my 7 core beliefs and was still battling the I'm not enough, oh my gosh, or I didn't have what it takes, then that felt like I was flaky. And
Mm.
so, and when you forget things because you are ADHD and you're very focused on what's in front of you, and if somebody's not, yelling at you, then it's easy to drop balls. I just years ago decided it's very important to me to be a woman of my word. As such, I try to be very careful about giving my word and agreeing to do something, because if I agree to do something and I commit to doing something, I want to do it. I don't like being the person that, like, schedules coffee with somebody and then just flakes out and doesn't show up, or schedules dinner or whatever. And there's times when I schedule those dinner and I'm freaking tired. I was like, I'm so tired. But I said I would do it, so I'm gonna do it. But yeah, it is a it's my coping mechanism for ensuring I don't feel flaky.
Hmm.
And clearly you do not struggle with feeling flaky. Nobody would ever accuse you of being flaky.
I mean, I don't know if that's 100% true, but, I think some
Sorry.
people might accuse me of being flaky, but, I don't
Mm.
know, maybe I just don't there's different oh, golly, I have baggage about things, like, don't get me wrong, um, we were just talking before this, I think I have coaching because I think I have an area of my life where people call me flaky. What do you mean people don't think I'm flaky? Of course they do. In any case, uh it's interesting to think about the why behind things, and I wonder, though, if both of us being questioners contributes so much to our love and joy of this podcast. Number 1, we want to talk about things and we have good conversations, and we think that other people might enjoy those conversations. It seems that you guys are, 5,000 downloads later. 2, we want to dig in on the why, how to live an intentional life, how to understand who you are, how to work better with people, and different concepts where when we have guests on and we're like, "No, no, tell us the why. Get to the heart of the matter." I think that
Mhm.
that probably is something that has contributed to our podcast for us being able to commit to something so thoroughly, because I do think with you and I and our ADHD tendencies, we I'll admit, there are times where I'm surprised. I continue to be impressed with ourselves that we've got 125 plus episodes. Like, wow, this is a lot of commitment. We've really been doing this. I don't know that, people keep saying, "What are you doing next?" Well, for 3 years, you've been having a podcast every single week. Like, that's reliable. Let's go, baby. Anyway,
I one time also wrote down all the evidence to prove that I was flaky, and then all the evidence to disprove that I was flaky, and that was a coach homework I had to do, and I actually, when you start writing it down on paper, I didn't find a lot of evidence to prove that I had this random thought that I was flaky. I think it really did go back to undiagnosed ADHD as a child. You would forget your head if it wasn't attached to you because I lost things. And I now know that one of the hallmarks or one of the symptoms of ADHD is location issues. So we lose things. We can't
yeah,
find we have to use Google Maps a lot. Some of us, not everybody's different, but that's
sure.
one of the areas. So anyway.
One of the other things that I wanted to bring up before we wrap up about these 4 tendencies is working with people not in your same tendency. Angela, I think you and I work so well together often because we get each other, but there are other people that you can kind of have 2 sides of the spectrum. One, you can either understand somebody so well that you can manipulate them into doing what you want, or you cannot understand why they're doing what they're doing and you get really frustrated because it doesn't make sense, and like this is just not coherent and it doesn't add up. um and I think that both of those are like the ditches on either side of a road, is knowing somebody too much to try and manipulate your relationship, or getting too frustrated with your relationships because you just don't get it. Why wouldn't they do this thing? They said the New Year's resolution. Just meet it. Duh. Just do the thing. That's the one that drives me crazy from the few upholders that I know, is they're like, I don't get it. Just do it. Like, it's not that hard. I'm like, what do you mean it's not that hard? Sometimes it is hard. Anyway, but um that's my thought. Any thoughts on that, on either
Yeah,
side of that relationship ditch?
I do. I think that one of the things that my favorite thing about aging is having so many more opportunities to have learned lessons. And so
Mm,
I literally shared this story yesterday. They were like, one of the things that I will do, I will say to my staff a lot, my team, is I will say, now help me understand. That's actually been an improvement because I used to say, what exactly were you thinking about when you made that decision? And I have found that puts people on defensive no matter how kind and gentle I am trying to be, because typically when I'm asking that question, they have made a mistake in my mind. Um, Help me understand, what were you thinking when you did that thing? Because years ago, I assumed, which you know what to get, I assumed that people were just blowing off information and then making bad decisions that often cost me money. And so I would be like, what in the heck? And they're like, well, I didn't know that. And so I'm delighted at this age to assume people, I didn't finish my sentence or I didn't give them all the information. I try to make that my default, is guessing that I didn't give them everything they needed. It was fun to hear the perspective of my team members who said, no, 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 the absolute worst is when you ask that question and I know I've messed up.
that was me. I'm the team member
Yes,
who said that.
not everybody has the confidence to say that. I was really caught off guard that that was your like, oh, it's the worst. I was like, really?
Well, but the thing is that it's not the worst as in you're the worst. It
Mm-hmm.
is for me that like rubber meets the road, feet held to the fire moment of like, crap, I didn't. I don't have a good reason for not having done whatever it was I was supposed to do. I was lazy, I let my insecurity come out, I was
Mhm.
stressed, I didn't care that much about the results, so I didn't try that hard. I don't know, whatever it is, like, the answer when if it is like, "Oh, I didn't know the whole story, here's what I knew," it's not so hard. It's when it's when you're right that, like, your generous assumption when the ungenerous assumption is actually right that, like, "What were you thinking?" Um,
I
and you're like,
wasn't.
"Yeah, I wasn't thinking that." And then what's hard the first moment where I was like, "I'm so sorry, I won't do it again." And then you said, "No, really, I need you to explain your thinking to me so I can understand where we need to correct this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, my heart and everything. I can't just get out of this with a 'I'm sorry'." Anyway, because it was on me. It was totally on me, and I also think in the same vein of clarity is kindness, like, you need people to hold you accountable, and sometimes to hold you accountable for the things you're doing wrong in your life, and too often when we're avoiding the hard conversations, when we're avoiding the uncomfortable, that's uncomfortable is where the magic happens. And it's okay to feel like, ugh. I think it's okay to feel, like, icky that you didn't do something right, and you're like, "Man, that wasn't in alignment with my character. I didn't love how I performed in that." Like, it's not innately bad that you felt that way. It's just information. And
It is
so
information.
ugh.
I would say I'm about to contradict myself from earlier in the podcast because
Ooh,
what I was saying, I don't understand why people need motivation or accountability. They have to have it themselves, otherwise, nobody else can help them. I don't know if that's true in a leadership standpoint because, in a leadership standpoint, if there are company values, someone has to hold the company values precious and has to maintain alignment with those precious company
mhm,
values. And I can tell you, having coached a number of managers in our company throughout the years, that is one of the most difficult jobs as a manager is because they do want to take the perspective, well, that's their job, they should just do their job. And I'm like, yeah, and if they're not doing their job, we have to we can't have the client telling them they're not doing their job. We can't
right.
have their coworker telling them they're not doing their job. We have to tell them they're not performing, and it's difficult and it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's not fun. And I think again, clarity is kindness because I have had people that were, on the wrong seat on the bus. And I've seen it happen two different ways. One of my clients moved them to another seat on the bus, and they did fabulous in that seat. Because I've consulted on this whole thing, getting people in the right seat of the bus, and I've had people that I have had to say, "I need you to step off the bus. This is not the right bus for you. This is how we work here at the Belford Group, and this is not the right bus for you." And those are not fun conversations. They make me a stronger interviewer, and I'm better at hiring because of those, because I ask better questions. But those times, sometimes those have come back, and people are like, "Man, I'm really glad because you're right. I wasn't passionate about the work. I didn't like the work. I didn't whatever. It wasn't the right seat. And I want to do a good job." That's the thing, is that I think most of us humans want to do a good job and want to feel fulfilled at the end of the day. And I kind of get annoyed with people that are my age and older that are like, "Oh, these young people, they don't even care if they do a good job." I just don't think that's true. I think that if you have I don't care what age worker, and they have the opportunity to do a job that they're really good at, or they have opportunity to do a job that they're really bad at, they would rather do a job that they're good at and be good at it and do a good job than they would do a crappy job at a job that they're not good at. Not to say that we don't all have bad days, but just we, I think in general, like to feel that. I mean, we're wired for dopamine. And when we do well, then we get a big hit of dopamine. So,
I also think there are a lot of work conditions that make it so that people are less likely to want to try and put in that effort.
yep.
And to bring it back around,
I was going to
getting to
say,
know your team and getting to know how people work together is a step that you can do to make it an enjoyable work environment. It is something that you can do to try meet people where they are. And it's not about trying to change their tendency. It's not about trying to force somebody into a different box. It's about trying to say, great, you're a questioner. As a manager, I might need to consider that I'm going to take a step or two more to explain the why behind something to get you to buy into it. If I'm working with an obliger, I might need to take a step more to explain this is who's counting on you and this is where your part in the process falls. And when this is why that deadline matters, because these four people will then need to be able to take the work and continue that. And so it's not just about your job, it's about where it falls in the scope of the team, because that might help them understand a little bit more of that integration and be able to help their team members better. Whatever it is, it's really about getting to know yourself and your team so you can be more intentional at work, so that work can be freaking awesome. Because isn't that the goal? Angela, any last thoughts? Any well wishes for people as they continue and to embark on learning more about themselves?
I would say that it is a lifelong journey and you spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year with yourself, except on leap year 366. And so it is a worthwhile endeavor to get to know yourself better. I know there's some people that are like, "Ooh, that's terrifying." And I'm like, "Well, then baby step your way in. Just wade into the shallow end." And this is a pretty what I love is this tendencies quiz. It's free. It's 12 questions. You could literally get it done in about 3 to 4 minutes. And then it gives you some just interesting information. And even the report is only a couple of pages long. So
Right.
it's not really in depth, which is a nice way to gently get to know yourself. So maybe if I read the book that goes with it, we'll be back on here.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and for listening in. We love you all. You guys are great. For now, I hope you guys go be freaking awesome.